The house is literally on fire. I mean, you are staring at the state of this institution right now, and what you are being sold as summer planning is, well, it's a complete unadulterated facade.
Oh, absolutely. It's a joke.
Right. Today on the Deep Dive, for this special Bernabeu Notes edition, we are pulling from our own internal tactical tape, we're dissecting the club's financial balance sheets, and we're cross-examining the medical protocols to expose the actual reality of what is happening behind closed doors.
Because someone has to.
Exactly. We're going to tear down the PR machinery for you. We are exposing the absolute financial gridlock that is keeping completely incompatible players trapped at this club. We're dissecting a medical department that is committing borderline malpractice, and we are tracking the ticking clock of a preseason that is already entirely off the rails.
It's terrifying when you actually look at the timeline.
It is, and in the middle of this inferno, in the dead center of this structural collapse, José Mourinho is sitting in a room at Valdebebas taking pictures of himself meditating. I mean, okay, let's unpack this.
Look, you have to understand the sheer gravity of what you are witnessing right now. Because the club, they want you to focus on the shiny new toys.
Always.
Right? They want you to stare at the names on the back of the shirts and just think, oh, this is just another standard summer window, right? Another brick in the glorious Galactico era.
But it's not.
It is emphatically not. What you are watching in real time is a structural crisis that is masquerading as a sporting project. We are analyzing a board entirely paralyzed by its own financial missteps and honestly in utter terror of market risk.
Yeah, terror is the word.
And into this vacuum, they have dropped a manager who operates best when the building is collapsing.
Paralyzed is the exact word. I mean, consider what Mourinho's doing right this second. He is physically present at Valdebebas. And what is his opening move?
The Instagram post.
The meditation. He posts images of himself meditating. He is walking the halls with Sami Khedira, Antonio Pintus, and Luis Lopez. But there is absolutely no presentation date set. None.
Which is completely unheard of for this club.
Completely. We are heading into a season with the heaviest expectations in a decade. Preseason officially kicks off Monday at 8 a.m. for medicals. There is a brutal 5 p.m. training session in the suffocating Madrid heat, and the manager hasn't even stood in the presidential box in a suit.
Yeah.
I analyzed these meditation photos, and it feels like, well, it feels like nothing but performative PR. It's a smoke screen for a team that currently has zero actual sporting direction from the top down.
See, I completely disagree with you on the intent there.
Yeah, it's pure PR.
No, what's fascinating here is that you're framing this as a lack of direction from the club, but you need to evaluate it as a calculated execution of control by Mourinho.
Control over what? Half the squad isn't even there.
Just listen. Why is there no suit and tie presentation? Because Mourinho is intentionally manipulating this media vacuum.
Yeah.
Foregoing the spectacle in the presidential box, it projects an image of pure monastic labor.
Monastic labor?
Yes. He is establishing psychological dominance over a fractured squad before they even unpack their bags. Think about the messaging here. By refusing the pomp and circumstance, he's telling the players the party is over. And observe who he has next to him. Sami Khedira. You think Khedira is there by accident?
I think Khedira is there because the midfield is a disaster zone, and the coaching staff is terrified of the void Toni Kroos left behind.
Well, yes, but...
They're trying to slap a psychological band-aid on a tactical gaping wound.
Exactly, but go deeper into the mechanics of that choice. Khedira is being brought in to inject that raw, uncompromising German mentality and absolute seriousness into a locker room that just lost its compass in Kroos.
Right, but is Khedira really going to fix that?
When we talk about German mentality in this context, we aren't just using a cliche. We're talking about absolute tactical discipline, the emotional flatline required to execute a game plan without ego, and crucially, the willingness to do the unglamorous transitional running that Kroos masked with his positioning.
Because Kroos always knew exactly where to be.
Exactly. Mourinho knows the culture is slipping into complacency. He knows the squad is built on ego right now. The meditation photo isn't PR, it's a warning shot. It literally says, I am here, the circus is over, and the monastery is open.
A monastery with a skeleton crew? I mean, paint the picture of that 5 p.m. Monday training session for a second.
Oh, it's going to be bleak.
It's a joke. The heat in Madrid at 5 p.m. in July is oppressive, it's suffocating, it drains the life out of you just standing on the asphalt, let alone running sprints on the pitch for Pintus.
And look at the attendance list.
Exactly. Who is actually going to be out there on the grass? Trent Alexander-Arnold, Camavinga, Asensio, Lunin, and a handful of kids from the Castilla. That is it.
It's barely a five-a-side team.
Contrast that barren, sun-scorched training pitch with the massive, suffocating expectations weighing on this season. It's an absolute joke. You have a manager trying to implement a grueling, physically demanding philosophy, and he's doing it with 5 senior players and a bunch of teenagers who won't even be here in September.
And you have to ask why.
Yes. And the reason half the squad is missing, or injured, or utterly out of form, ties directly into the deepest, darkest secret of this summer.
You're talking about the midfield.
We need to talk about the AURÉLIEN TCHOUAMÉNI'S truth.
The contract renewal. Or, as we should probably properly classify it, the balance sheet preservation tactic.
The hostage situation, that's what it is.
Well,
let's strip away the polished announcements. AURÉLIEN TCHOUAMÉNI has been renewed for a massive wage packet. We are talking 10 to 11.5 million euros net.
that puts him at the top of the absolute market for his position
Globally. But here is the explosive reality that the club's media arm desperately wants to bury. The board wanted to sell him.
Yep.
They desperately wanted to move him for 90 million euros. They put him on the market internally. They floated his name to the Premier League. And Tchouaméni simply stared them down, refused to leave, and demanded the money.
He called their bluff.
And what did the club do? They capitulated. They folded instantly. They took the lesser evil of paying him an absolute fortune rather than risking him running his contract down and leaving for free in 2 years.
Because in modern football economics, you cannot let a 90 million euro asset depreciate to zero on your financial ledgers. It is a cold, calculated, albeit heavily flawed strategy.
It's cowardice is what it is.
Understand the mechanism of amortization here, though. When you buy a player for 80 or 100 million euros, that cost is spread over the length of their contract on the books.
Right.
If you let them leave for free, you take a catastrophic hit all at once. The club operates like a terrified investment firm right now. You were calling it a hostage situation, but from a purely financial perspective, protecting the asset by extending the contract and spreading out the amortization is the only move when you are incapable of dictating the market.
Protect the asset. They aren't dictating anything. Players dictate terms to Real Madrid now. I mean, break down the historical context here.
Yeah, it is a massive shift, I agree.
Examine how this club used to operate when the sporting project actually mattered more than the spreadsheet. When a player didn't fit or when their value peaked, we were proactive. We were ruthless.
Look at Mesut Ozil.
Mesut Ozil sold to Arsenal the minute his wage demands disrupted the structure. Angel Di Maria, man of the match in the Champions League final, sold to Manchester United literally weeks later.
Varane is another great example.
Rafael Varane, shipped out at the perfect time before his knees completely gave out. Casemiro, sold to United for a massive fee because it made structural sense for the rebuild.
And now?
Now we wait for a player to kindly bring us an offer, and if they don't, we just back up the bank vaults and pay them to stay so our accounting department doesn't have a panic attack. I mean, my God, Marco Asensio had a renewal offer on the table from us.
That's true. If PSG hadn't bailed us out...
If PSG hadn't swooped in to save us from ourselves, we would still be paying him premium wages to sit on the bench.
Look, I am not defending the passivity. It is a symptom of institutional fear. But you have to evaluate what happens when you lock yourself into these renewals without a cohesive tactical plan.
Which we don't have.
Right. You just mentioned Tchouaméni's 11.5 million net. You add that to Fede Valverde, who is locked down on a massive contract until 2029, potentially 2031.
Insane numbers.
Then you add Jude Bellingham's astronomical wages and transfer fee. You are analyzing the most expensive midfield trio on the planet. The amount of capital immobilized in those three players is staggering. And tactically, it is a nightmare.
It's an incompatible nightmare.
They're structurally incapable of dominating a football match together against elite opposition.
Tell them why.
You have three players who thrive in transition, who require immense physical output, who want to carry the ball over long distances, but you have absolutely zero tempo control. Let's define what that actually means on the pitch. Tempo control a pausa is the cognitive ability to receive the ball under pressure, recognize that the defense is shifting, and hold the ball for an extra half second to manipulate the opposition's shape before playing a breaking pass.
Cruz had it.
Cruz had it. Modric had it. Tchouaméni, Valverde, and Bellingham do not. They are hammers, and this midfield requires a scalpel.
Right.
When you press this trio, they speed up. They force the transition. They turn every game into a basketball match.
Right.
The club has committed a historic amount of financial resources to a midfield that fundamentally does not fit together. And because of those wages, because of the player power you just described, they cannot be moved. You are trapped by your own wealth.
We are trapped by our own incompetence. We have built a midfield of pure muscle with absolutely no brain to dictate the rhythm. And if you want to talk about incompetence, if you want to discuss the absolute systemic failure of this institution from top to bottom, we have to pivot to the medical meltdown.
The Rodrigo situation.
Because what is happening in the medical wing right now is not just bad luck, it is pure, unadulterated financial malpractice. Rodrigo needs an arthroscopy, a knee cleaning.
Which is a devastating procedure for a player with his specific biometric profile.
Devastating.
We need to be clinical about this. An arthroscopy sounds routine to a layman, but for an elite winger whose entire game is predicated on lateral acceleration, it is a massive red flag.
Exactly. And before the Champions League final, Rodrigo dropped massive, undeniable hints in the press about leaving.
He was definitely testing the waters.
Testing the waters, opening the door for Manchester City or Arsenal. The club could have sold him right then and there for 100 to 120 million euros. The Premier League would have paid it in a heartbeat.
Easily.
But what did the board do? They froze. They did absolutely nothing. They were paralyzed by the fear of making a definitive sporting decision. And now his knee is a mess, he needs surgery, and his market value is completely compromised. We swallowed a 120 million euro asset because we were too scared to pull the trigger.
And the physical breakdown of this squad is directly linked to the instability and, well, the lack of accountability behind the scenes.
Oh, the medical department is a joke.
Think about the timing. Dr. Manuel Arroyo just resigned to go to Granada. The head of the medical department walks away to a newly promoted, lesser club right as the most intense preseason of the decade is starting. That tells you everything you need to know about the internal chaos.
They're jumping ship.
Medical professionals of that caliber do not leave the most prestigious club in the world unless the working conditions, the pressure from the board, or the internal politics have become absolutely toxic.
Toxic is putting it mildly.
And the Rodrigo ripple effect is massive. Let's explain the mechanics of this injury. When you undergo an arthroscopy to clean out cartilage in the knee, you inevitably lose a fraction of a second in your kinetic chain.
You lose your burst.
You lose that explosive agility, that immediate first step, which constitutes 90% of Rodrigo's attacking threat. He isn't a power player. He's a finesse and burst player.
Yeah.
You are holding on to a player who might never possess the same burst again, all because the board lacked the ruthless edge to sell him at his absolute peak.
It's a billion-euro institution operating its medical wing like a neighborhood clinic. Arroyo leaves, but it gets worse. Let's analyze the Mbappe X-ray disaster.
That was embarrassing.
The medical staff X-rayed the wrong knee. I want you to just sit with that for a second. Let the sheer absurdity of it wash over you. We are talking about the most heavily scrutinized, expensive, globally anticipated acquisition in the history of the sport, and our highly paid medical professionals diagnosed the wrong leg.
It's baffling.
How does that even happen? Is it a complete breakdown in departmental communication? Are they so rushed to appease the player and his entourage that they skip basic protocols? It is a level of staggering Sunday league incompetence.
And it had consequences.
Oh, major consequences. What did Mbappe do with that information? He weaponized it. Back in March, when the team was actually functioning somewhat okay, he used that misdiagnosis to publicly humiliate the club.
He essentially peed on them in the press.
He effectively destroyed the medical department's credibility in the press to assert his own dominance and insulate himself from criticism about his form.
Which ties perfectly and dangerously to what Mourinho's walking into.
Good luck to him.
The physical breakdown of these players, Rodrigo's compromised knee, Mbappe's phantom issues and manipulative media games, the chronic mismanagement of squad fatigue is going to collide head-on with the tactical burden Mourinho's about to place on them.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
Let's be very clear about Mourinho's methodology. He demands absolute physical sacrifice. He demands forwards tracking back into their own penalty area, suffering without the ball, playing through the pain barrier, and operating in a low block that requires 60-yard explosive sprints on the counter.
Which they won't do.
How do you implement that grueling philosophy when your medical department can't even identify the correct injured limb? How do you demand a player run through a brick wall for you when the player knows the medical staff waiting on the other side of that wall is utterly incompetent?
You can't. It is a recipe for a catastrophic public collapse. The players will simply refuse to push their bodies into the red zone.
Look.
And speaking of tactical collapse, let's examine the attack, because we have assembled Mbappe, Vinicius, and Endrick.
The Galactico front line.
Right. On paper, on a spreadsheet, it sounds like a video game. It sounds like a dream. But in reality, on a 105 by 68 meter pitch, they need 3 separate footballs to function.
It's incredibly congested.
There is a glaring, undeniable positional problem here. Vinicius is likely to be renewed on a massive new deal, not because it makes structural sense to pair him long-term with Mbappe, but simply because Florentino Perez's ego will not allow him to lose a public power struggle to a kid from the favelas.
He can't look weak.
Exactly. He will throw unprecedented money at Vinicius to prove he is the ultimate boss, totally ignoring how they actually fit together.
If you evaluate the heat maps from our tactical data, it is alarming.
Oh, it's a disaster.
It is beyond concerning. It is structurally broken. Mbappe and Vinicius occupy the exact same half spaces.
They are stepping on each other's toes.
Let's define what we mean by the half space for a second. It is that crucial vertical corridor on the pitch between the wide wing channel and the absolute center of the field. It is the most dangerous area in modern football because it forces the opposition's fullback and center back to make a decision on who marks you.
Right, and both of them want that exact spot.
Both Mbappe and Vinicius want to receive the ball in that exact left half space, isolate their defender, and cut inside on their stronger right foot. You cannot play 2 ball-dominant players in the exact same channel.
It's impossible.
It creates a tactical bottleneck. They compress the defense, they choke each other's passing lanes, and they allow the opposition to defend narrower and deeper.
And where does that positional redundancy leave Endrick?
On an island.
Mourinho is already pushing Endrick out to the right wing in these early tactical blueprints, completely out of position, simply because he doesn't fit anywhere else in this bloated, incompatible system.
But he has to play somewhere.
So I have to ask a critical question. I have my own theory. But how does Mourinho possibly fix this on the pitch? Because from where I am sitting, Endrick on the right wing is a tactical disaster waiting to happen.
I think you're underestimating the kid.
We are trying to write a complex tactical code using a player who only speaks chaotic, unstructured football. The kid is incredibly raw. He is 18 years old, arriving from Brazil, and he is desperate to prove himself.
Which can be a good thing.
But he has that palpable anxiety of a teenager surrounded by €100 million megastars, and he is going to try to do too much every single time he touches the ball. If you isolate him on the right flank, force him to hug the touchline, and demand he tracks back to defend the opposition's overlapping fullbacks, you are going to destroy his confidence.
He's not built to track fullbacks, no.
I am telling you right now, if they mismanage him, if they force him into this unnatural role, Endrick is going to become the next Luka Jovic.
Okay, wait, no.
A massive, historic investment, utterly wasted because we tried to jam a highly specialized player into a rigid system to accommodate the egos of the superstars on the left.
I'm going to push back hard on that Jovic comparison. I mean, I understand your frustration, but you are entirely writing Endrick off by misunderstanding the core mechanics of what he brings to a football pitch.
How so? He's completely raw.
Jovic failed because he lacked the psychological resilience and the off-the-ball work rate required at this level. Endrick is a different psychological profile entirely.
He's still just a kid.
But he has a pure, chaotic goal instinct. He possesses an utter unconsciousness on the pitch. And I mean that as a massive compliment. He doesn't overthink the tactical constraints. He doesn't care about the heat maps or the designated half spaces.
That's a problem for Mourinho, though.
No, listen. In a front line that is rigidly incompatible, where Mbappe and Vini are literally stepping on each other's toes trying to execute the exact same dribbling patterns, Endrick's chaotic nature might be the exact wild card Mourinho needs.
Oh, wild.
When the rigid tactical system fails, and it will fail against low blocks, you need a player who just smells blood in the penalty area. Endrick doesn't need a perfectly orchestrated build-up to score. He needs chaos. He could be the salvage operation for an attack that overcomplicates everything.
Salvage operation. We are relying on an 18-year-old playing completely out of his natural position to salvage a billion-euro front line.
Sometimes you need that unpredictability.
That is tactical bankruptcy. If your strategy relies on an unproven teenager ignoring the tactical setup to score scrappy goals because your 2 highest-paid players can't share the left side of the pitch, you don't have a strategy. You have a prayer.
I wouldn't call it a prayer.
And it doesn't get any better when you move your eyes backward down the pitch.
Yeah.
Let's analyze the defensive band-aids.
The defense is a concern, yes.
We are relying entirely on the impending arrival of Trent Alexander-Arnold to magically fix the right side of our defense and praying that we can somehow pull off the Bastoni deal for the center back position, which is highly, highly complicated given Inter Milan's demands and our own financial paralysis.
But Bastoni is a long shot.
Meanwhile, Carreras, who was supposed to be the internal solution, has proven to be an absolute bust. Un pufo, a total unmitigated failure at this level. We are scrambling.
The Trent Alexander-Arnold situation is fascinating because it fundamentally alters the entire build-up phase of the team.
Offensively, sure.
Right. You bring him in, and yes, you gain an elite, world-class playmaker from the right flank. He solves some of the progression issues that the midfield trio of Tchouaméni, Valverde, and Bellingham create.
Because they can't pass the ball.
Because those three can't pass through the lines, Alexander-Arnold can bypass the midfield entirely with a 60-yard diagonal switch to Vinicius.
But at what cost?
Well, you are leaving gaping, terrifying defensive holes. Alexander-Arnold is an offensive engine, not a defensive stopper. His one-on-one defending, his spatial awareness when tracking runners on his blind side, is heavily flawed.
It's a massive liability.
If you deploy him, you absolutely must have a tactically flawless, highly mobile center-back pairing to cover the space he vacates, which we do not have right now.
Especially with Militao.
Especially with Eder Militao's catastrophic injury history and his loss of recovery pace. If we play Alexander-Arnold with this current center-back rotation, we're going to bleed goals in transition.
Bleed goals, bleed talent, bleed our very identity. Let's examine the Cantera, because the Youth Academy is bleeding out as we speak. It is dead.
It's certainly shifting its purpose.
The Cantera as a sporting project, as a pathway to the first team, is completely finished. Alvaro Arbeloa has left for Fulham. Let that sink in.
Yeah, that was a shock.
A club legend, coaching the youth, packs his bags for a mid-table Premier League side. And he didn't just leave quietly. He took Alex Salvador, a key physical preparator, with him. Bruno Galassi is off to Lazio. We are watching a mass exodus of coaching talent and youth prospects.
Because the pathway is blocked.
The academy is no longer a romantic pathway to the Bernabeu. It is strictly a factory for generating agent commissions, selling kids for 5 million euros here and 8 million euros there, just to balance the first team's disastrous accounting books.
It's an economic lever now.
I mean, think back to this past season. Close your eyes and remember. The only time the Bernabeu felt genuinely connected to the team, the only time there was real visceral emotion and electricity in those stands was the Madrid-Elche game.
The kids.
Why? Because the kids played. Because there was a soul on the pitch. Because fans saw players who actually cared about the crest, rather than mercenaries calculating that next contract renewal.
It raises a profound question about the very soul of the club. And this isn't just romanticism, it's a structural analysis.
Yeah.
If your youth team is just a financial instrument, a glorified spreadsheet designed to offset the exorbitant wages of the Galacticos, and your first team is a collection of incompatible, highly paid mercenaries who dictate terms to the board, what identity is Mourinho actually supposed to protect?
There is none.
What culture is he supposed to enforce? When Mourinho arrived in 2010, he had a core of players who bled for the club. Casillas, Ramos, Alonso. He could weaponize that identity. Now, he has walked into a corporate entity, an investment firm, not a football club. There is no institutional philosophy left to defend other than just win at all costs despite yourselves.
And that right there, that absolute void of identity and leadership from the board is exactly why Mourinho will blow this locker room up by December. Mark my words.
By December?
By December. We're on a collision course. You have an immovable object meeting a highly explosive force. Mourinho is a manager who demands absolute unquestioning sacrifice. He demands players to suffer. And he has just inherited a squad of 100 million euro untouchables who literally hold the club hostage in contract negotiations. Think about the mechanics of what happens in November.
Okay, let's play it out.
When Mourinho looks at that incompatible midfield or that clunky, clustered three-ball attack and decides to do what needs to be done, when he benches Rodrigo or benches Bellingham to play a more balanced system, what happens?
The press goes crazy.
The players will immediately leak their discontent to the press. They will run crying to the board. And the board, terrified of their assets depreciating, will side with the financial assets. Mourinho will be isolated, he will combust in a press conference, and the season will burn to the ground. It is a ticking time bomb.
See, if we connect this to the bigger picture, You are fundamentally misreading the board's intention entirely.
How am I misreading it? It's exactly what they always do.
I vehemently disagree that the board will side with the players against Mourinho in that scenario. Why do you think Mourinho was actually brought in? Think about the timing.
Go win.
No, think about the paralysis we discussed. He was hired precisely because the board is paralyzed. Florentino Perez and the executives are too risk-averse to bench a 100 million euro asset themselves. They are too scared to take the PR hit of admitting their Galactico project is flawed.
So Mourinho is the scapegoat.
Mourinho is the ultimate mercenary hired to do the dirty work. He is the human shield. When he benches a star, when he forces the team to play ugly, grinding, one-bill football against relegation candidates, the Bernabeu will whistle. The media will scream about the betrayal of our attacking heritage. The players will pout.
And Mourinho?
And Mourinho won't care. He thrives on it. He absorbs the toxicity. He draws all the fire so the board doesn't have to face the music. The board isn't going to fire him in December. They're going to hide behind him while he cleans up their mess.
Hide behind him while the season slips away. Because we are in a desperate race against the clock, and the clock is winning by a landslide. Analyze the schedule?
Just kite.
There is no U.S. tour this year. No massive commercial trip to build brand synergy, but more importantly, no extended period for the squad to isolate, bond, and build team chemistry.
Which they desperately need.
The friendlies are incredibly limited and disjointed. We have the Teresa Herrera Trophy in A Coruña on August 12th. We have one game scheduled in Austria. Maybe, just maybe, a closed-door scrimmage at Valdebebas. That is the entirety of the preparation for a team undergoing a massive tactical overhaul.
And you have to factor in the catastrophic physiological and psychological fallout from the Euros and the Copa America.
It's unprecedented.
The squad is completely fragmented. The integration window is practically non-existent. Arda Güler and Fede Valverde don't even arrive at the training ground until next week. Vinicius and Endrick aren't landing until July 28th.
Exhausted.
They are arriving fatigued, mentally drained, and physically depleted. And you have a staggeringly late start to La Liga, kicking off around August 10th or 11th.
It's suffocating. Let's do the math. Mourinho has less than a month, less than 4 weeks to install a brand new, grueling physical philosophy, fix the world's most expensive and structurally broken midfield, integrate an attack that needs 3 separate footballs to function, and deal with a medical department that can't tell a left knee from a right knee.
It's a massive undertaking.
It is an impossible timeline. It defies the laws of sports science and tactical periodization.
And let's outline the worst-case scenario here. Because given the variables we've discussed, it is highly probable.
Go ahead. Give us the nightmare scenario.
You go into those first 3 weeks of La Liga physically undercooked and tactically confused. The team looks completely disjointed. You travel to a hostile stadium like El Sadar or San Mamés, and you drop points against mid-table opposition who have been in a training camp together for 6 uninterrupted weeks.
Then the panic starts.
What happens next? The Bernabeu immediately turns because they have zero patience for this disjointed style, especially after the promises of the summer. The moment the whistles start cascading down from the stands, the media leaks begin.
Oh, it's late.
Players' camps start whispering to friendly journalists about Mourinho's archaic tactics and demanding training sessions. The medical staff is publicly blamed for the lack of fitness. The entire structural facade we've been tearing down today collapses in real time in front of the world.
It collapses because it was built on sand.
Yeah.
You cannot sustain a football club of this magnitude purely on ego, fear, and spreadsheets. It always catches up to you on the grass.
Which leaves you with this chilling concept to really mull over as we head into August.
What's that?
Evaluate the balance sheet. Scrutinize the names on the roster. If you assemble the most expensive midfield in the history of the sport, and you acquire the most talented attacking generation in the world, but fundamentally, physically, and tactically, they cannot play a coherent game of football together. Are you still managing a football club, or are you just curating an investment portfolio?
Man, that is the grim reality. It is a financial portfolio wrapped in a white shirt.
Exactly.
Look, you need to survive this season, and the only way you are going to understand the absolute chaos unfolding at Valdebebas, the only way you are going to get the unfiltered truth is by sticking with us. Subscribe to the Deep Dive right now to catch every single edition of our Bernabeu Notes series.
You have to follow along.
YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, hit the notifications. Do not consume the club's PR fluff. Get the actual clinical dissection right here.
Yeah, and frankly, you better subscribe and get those numbers up, because we are going to need the ad revenue to pay for the collective therapy this club is about to put us all through by November.
I mean, we're definitely going to need it. It's going to be brutal, folks. Remember what we said at the top? The house is on fire, the fire alarm is ringing, and the board is just telling you to admire the flames. We'll see you next time.